Hello. So, I have a paid program called Adonis School. And inside of there, like it's in the description if you want to have a look, but inside of there, I asked the guys, what video do you want me to make for this channel? And one of the most liked suggestions was by Victor, who asked how to work for longer without getting distracted. So there's two parts to that question. How to extend our work time so we can work more, and also how to work without getting distracted. And here's a lesson I'm going to teach you as a guy who has like the immigrant work mindset, who can work 10, 12 hours a day. You might not want to. It might not actually be beneficial for you. Let me explain to you in an analogy. I love making analogies, okay? There's two types of workers. There is the mule and the lion. A mule is like a donkey. If you imagine being in like a third world country, you're driving somewhere, maybe you're in a car, and this guy is literally sat on a big stack of hay, with some like trolley thing underneath him, and the donkey is just pushing it, pulling it forward. The donkeys are just used, like mules are just used to just trot forward, taking a massive amount of weight behind them. That mule will be made to go for 10 hours straight, where then it'll rest and it'll go again and again and again and again, till eventually it's old, weak, and then it dies. That's how most guys work, and that's actually how a lot of entrepreneurs work. And it might not even be right. Now, if this was 100 or 200 years ago, that would be the way that you work. You show up to the factory, you turn your emotions off, you're a man, you have to provide, your woman doesn't work, like this, this was before feminism. So you just have to show up 6 days a week and work for 10 to 14 hours. You had to be a mule back in the day. These days, please try to listen to this. It's not the case anymore. These days, for most careers and businesses, working like a mule will actually get you left behind. Because it's not just being able to show up, turn your emotions off, and just grind 12 hours a day every single day. Now the meta stands for most effective tactic available. Basically, it's like a phrase where it's like, this is the thing you should do now, basically. Like, this is a new thing, and everything before this is useless. The meta for work in the modern day is not the mule. It is not the 10-hour days. It's not. I promise you it's not. It's instead to work like the lion. Now, I'm not like some super knowledgeable guy when it comes to these things, so I could get this wrong. But from my perspective, the way that a lion lives and works is that it's just sat around in the sun for hours and hours, and then it just like mounts its lioness, its first lioness, second lioness, just claps the cheeks. And then when it's hungry, it goes out at nighttime, slowly getting ready. So maybe spends like an hour in kind of preparation, scoping out the land, and then works for literally the shortest amount of time, 1 minute, 2 minutes, that's it. And it's over. It's caught the antelope, the buffalo, whatever, brought it down, suffocated it by choking its neck, and it's over. And it's just got to drag it back to its pride, the pack of lions back at home. Do you see the differences between one whose work and productivity is based on how many hours they work, and two, the lion whose productivity is based on the results? Nobody gives a shit if you work 10 hours a day, because it doesn't matter, right? Back in the day, if you worked 10 hours, you would assume that you were more productive than you or the friend of yours who only worked 6 hours, because your productivity was just based on how many hours you spent at the factory, at the mine, whatever. These days, if you are a cognitive worker, for example, you're not making money with your body, but you're making money with your brain. So for example, you're a modern day influencer, entrepreneur, maybe you're studying and you want to get into some field, software developing, whatever. A lot of people in these fields will still be doing the 10, 12 hour days, but it's weird because some of the top performers actually only do a good few hours a day? So this question, or the first part of this question that Victor asked me here, that 10 people had liked as well with his suggestion, like he's got 10 likes on it, how to work for longer without getting distracted. I would argue that a lot of people don't need to work harder, and a lot of people longer, and a lot of people do. So first of all, we need to find out, are you the type of guy who needs to work longer? I don't think you would be if you're watching this channel. If you were more like a complete beginner who needed all the flashy animations, and you're someone who, for example, like doesn't feel motivated to work and doesn't want to show up to work or anything, then most likely we need to teach you how to work longer. And to that, I don't mean to be demeaning, but you might want to go to like my more beginners channel, right? If you're watching this, you're already the kind of guy that I assume who likes working. It's like working isn't the problem. Overworking is. The last few days, and even for the last like few weeks, I've been like, it's weird, right? Because I've reduced my overworking just in the last few weeks because I realized it was a bad thing. So let me tell you from a high tier perspective, like a high perspective, what this is like being someone who overworks, someone who does work for a long time. Things are going good, but since you stare at your computer screen for 10 hours a day, you keep getting all these ideas that you want to implement, but then you change too much. So anyone who's seen me and my business in the last year has seen, wait, why did it go down? Hamza hit like such a top month. I hit like over $200,000 in, I think in April or May this year. I think it was up to $250,000 in 1 month. Think about that for a second. I hit $250,000 in 1 month. And my profit is very high. I have a higher profit percentage than most other entrepreneurs out there because I don't have like a massive team. I don't have partners, anything like that. I don't even have editing for most of these videos or anything, right? So I made a fuck ton of money, but then it's dropped by more than 50%. Why? Because I kept on overworking. And when you overwork, you'll have the tendency to fiddle with things, to tinker with things, to change things. For example, imagine if the best workout for you was like 1 hour and 15 minutes. You've done 15 sets for push day, chest, triceps, a little bit of shoulders, right? Okay, sweet. But now imagine if you were wondering, how could I work out for longer? And we devise a workout routine for you, which is now 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Is that more productive? Ask yourself, is the 3-hour workout better than the 1-hour workout? If you're like a bit of a simpleton, you'd say, yeah, because 3 hours is more than 1 hour. But if you're like kind of intellectual, you've been going to the gym enough, you'd be like, probably not, because whatever you're going to do in 3 hours, you most likely could do in the 1 hour. I'm talking specifically like a weightlifting workout. So 3 hours of exercise a day could be cool if, for example, 1 hour was yoga, 1 hour was like mobility, whatever, 1 hour is zone 2 cardio, 1 hour is weightlifting. Okay, so that's quite a lot, but that's like actually fair enough. That's, you know, it's fine. Or 1 hour walking your dog or something. Okay, but let's just say, okay, in weightlifting, literally lifting weights, is the 45 set workout better than the 15 set workout? Again, a retard will look at that and be like, yeah, because 45 sets is more. But anyone with a bit of intellect would say, you like, maybe not. Because you'd just be like, those last few sets are what's going to be called junk volume. Like, you're just going to be exhausted and you're still going to get, like, you're going to get massive fatigue, but maybe very, very little extra gains. And you've maybe just doubled or even tripled your risk of injury that day. You've spiked up your cortisol, so your testosterone's going to be lower, which might just lower the gains in the first place. And you're so tired and you've spent so long in the gym that now you might not have enough time to eat all your calories. Do you see how realistically, when you start to look at the entire picture, you think, oh yeah, like the 45 set workout is probably not going to be as good as the 15 set workout. And it's the same with your work hours. Don't fall victim to the old adage, which is that you have to just be working 24/7. I was doing the same thing and I thought that was productive. And I actually realized very early on, actually like super early on, that this was wrong. My overworking actually only started in the last like year or so, but for the first period of my sort of business work, I intuitively knew that you only had to work on a business like YouTube and selling like a program or something for a few hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. I intuitively knew it. So I'd spend all the rest of my time just doing like self-improvement things. Like I used to be in like the sort of fitness sort of block of time for about 3 hours. I would meditate for an hour a day. I love reading, so I would read for about 2 to 3 hours a day. I would journal for about 1 hour a day. I would just like sit around and drink tea and sort of contemplate life and think about things. I would go on a bunch of calls with people, with my friends, with like, guys I was trying to help. And so my day was stacked full. It wasn't that I was being unproductive and lazy and undisciplined, but I wasn't working for long hours. So I want you to take this lesson, because if I teach you how to work longer, it might actually stab you in the back. Because if you're watching this, you most likely are not one of those lazy, demotivated people who need to actually work longer. You're probably more of those anxious, insecure, high achievers. You're just trying to get mommy and daddy's love through achievement, basically. And I'm telling you, working longer is actually not the means by which you're going to do that. It is keeping like a healthy amount of work hours per day, per week, and then becoming better inside of those hours. Like the lion who hunts his prey, and he calculates it, and he's planning, and then when it's time to work, it's an all-out focus sprint. It's focus, it's intense, and it's over before he knows it, and he's just back to basically enjoying the rewards of the work, lying around in the sun, and then mounting the lionesses over and over again. That is the better work life of the intellectual. And if you right now are someone who is the profile that I'm talking to, which you probably are, and you've got to admit this to yourself, you are one of those anxious, insecure, high achievers. The problem comes when you are this profile that I'm speaking to, but you're not a high achiever yet, right? So you have the profile of the person I'm talking about, insecure, anxious, but who often becomes an overachiever, who becomes like a top performer, but you haven't yet. So now you're thinking, okay, well, which one do I do then? Because I don't have the result right now. So maybe I should work really long hours now, and then I could wind it down later. But I really think that line of thinking will be your demise. I think it specifically is you today working like a lion that's going to get you the results that you want. I speak to a lot of young, ambitious guys, right? My program, which is linked in the description, is basically a massive community of these like young, ambitious guys. And a lot of them have the exact same mindset, which is I'll work as hard as possible right now, and then I'll relax more later. And I have to tell them, like, no, like, you have to work like the lion now. Don't you see how it's easier for you to work like a mule? Like just get this in your mind, right? Like the kind of culture we have here is a culture of discipline. And guys think it's like more of a disciplined thing to be the mule who works 10 hours a day. But it's easier. That's why so many guys are doing it, right? Don't you see that the resistance you have is not to the being the donkey, the mule, and working, like trying to fill up your day with as much work as possible. The resistance you have more mentally and psychologically is to working like a lion. So don't you see it's working like a lion that actually requires more discipline? Just because one requires, like, what requires more like discipline? The 45 set workout that's going to get you worse results, or the let's say the 45-minute workout, which is super efficient, but then you're left thinking like agitated, wishing you could train more. Sometimes it's a discipline to restrain yourself, right? Don't look at discipline in a one-dimensional thing of like discipline's doing more. Sometimes the harder thing that your emotions are pulling you away from is doing less. Do you see how the discipline for you is working like the lion, not the mule? It's not hard to work like the mule, honestly. Like, if you can work like a mule, you're already better than 50% of the population, fine. But it's not that hard to get to that point, bro. There's so many lazy guys. There's so many, guys who have given up hope in life, and they're just there, just rotting away in some factory and in some job that they don't even like, and they're just not even ambitious, and they don't even want to, they want to climb out of it, but they're just not even putting in the effort to do so. And they're just there going to it every single day, 5-6 days a week for 40 years straight. There's so many mediocre average guys who can work like a mule. It's not like a flex to be able to work 10 hours. Go look outside your fucking window. There'll be tons of people in your own city who you don't even respect. Like, you wouldn't consider them to be top performers or intelligent, hardworking people. But they can just show up, turn their brain off, and work in a factory or as a taxi driver or whatever for 10 hours straight. But they're not people who you're thinking like, oh, they're high performers. They're just people who just turn their emotions off and they just work. That's it. That's actually easier than it seems. What's harder is being able to work like a lion, where your actions have to be calculated, where the tasks that you do are so high leverage that you'll maybe spend an hour in preparation for just working for 20 minutes. That's where the discipline lies. So do you see what I'm saying here? You don't have to work longer. You have to work like a lion, more efficiently and effectively. You have to figure out what task it is that's going to get you the result that you want, and then put everything into that task and restrain yourself from just working for work's sake. That's a phrase I want you to remember. Work for work's sake. Most people in this modern day, especially like us, like laptop nerds, people who have like an online business, or maybe like students and anyone who's kind of got like some kind of work they can do from home, we all suffer from something called work for work's sake, especially guys in this culture. You think that working is productive, so working fills up your time. Working is like the basic attack of your time. It's like the automatic use of your time, and you feel like a productive high achiever for that. I did it as well, and I realize now that that's actually unproductive. One counterpoint I just want to destroy quickly is people will say like, oh, but Hamza, you've got the money, so like you can't even, like now you're saying that you don't have to work as much. No. I made this money by not working much. I was already making like a fuck ton of money when I first started these 10, 12-hour days. When I built my audience on my main channel from 0 to 2 million followers in like 2.5, 3 years, I was only working like 5 to 10 hours a week. And even that, honestly, was so excessive. I probably would have gotten further if I limited it to about 5 hours per week. The discipline is not working more. The discipline is restraining yourself from working once you're doing the few core tasks, which in most businesses, like for example, being a YouTuber, being like an influencer, there's really not that much work to do. You just have to post content consistently. That's it. And then when you eventually sell a paid product, okay, sure, there's going to be 1 or 3 weeks that you're making the thing that you're selling, whatever. But for most of your journey, you're going to need to work for about 2 to 5 hours a week maximum. Anything more starts becoming excessive, and that's when you start to actually deteriorate your results. So imagine this. Let me ask you a question which is weird, right? Would you pay to work more? Think about that. Would you send someone money so that you could work more? Not that you're getting paid for your work. Would you pay to work more? Probably not. That's fucking mentally insane, right? That's actually what's happening by you reducing your income by working like a mule. When you do the essential tasks, and then after that you're doing all the other bullshit that most people are doing, even still me to this day, even though I've been so vigilant of this, I'm telling you, I more and more realize just how little work is needed to make like $1 million, $2 million a year. I realized just how little is needed to make 5 to 10K. Holy shit, bro. 1 to 2 hours a week of actual work. Make some content, upload it. That's it. And then when you get to the point where your audience is big enough, then you make a paid product. Okay, that's it. You could get to 10K a month in less than like 50 to 100 hours of work, honestly. But there's guys doing 10 hours a day wondering why they're stuck at like 400 subscribers on YouTube. Because when you work so much, your work quality reduces, right? Imagine if we had to rate your score, like imagine out of 10, we were going to give you a score for your work, like the quality of your work. If we use the bodybuilding example, you're going to do 15 sets. What would we rate the quality of each set? Most likely 6, 7. It's okay. It's pretty good. The form's pretty good. He pushed kind of hard. Okay, sweet. Fairly average. What if you were going to do 45 sets or 50 sets, right? So like a 3-hour workout. What would be the average quality of each set? Probably dropped all the way down to like 3 or 4 because so many of those sets you were just tired, your central nervous system was fatigued. How about this? How about 1 set? How about I pull out a gun, I put it to your fucking temple and I say, do 1 set to the point that you can move it no longer. I'm not talking about till the last rep, I'm talking about till the last millimeter. That's what we would call a 10 out of 10 set, where you haven't just hit failure on the rep and put the weight down like a cute little bitch. You hit failure and then you battled millimeter by millimeter the depth. You held it there as long as you possibly fucking could. You exploded it up a little bit, goes down, you push it back. I'm imagining like lying leg raises. It's slowly going down, and with all your might you find to push it back a little bit. That's failure. That one set, which probably lasts like 2-3 minutes, is probably better than 10 average sets. That's what we're talking about. It's the same with your number of work hours. If you're allowed to work, let's say 40 to 60 hours a week, as most guys are, each hour is probably going to be on average like a 3 out of 10 in quality. I know you don't believe it, but I'm telling you, this is what I've seen time and time again with the guys who are like high performers, with the guys who have bought into my community, so that you could imagine like more invested into this, right? They've like committed themselves. They've paid a lot of money to basically be surrounded by like the boys and with me. And I'm telling you, if I had to guess, on average, the quality of their hour of work is probably like a 3 or a 4 out of 10, because all of them work too much. For you, it's probably about the same, maybe even a little bit lower. Because when you work too much, the quality per hour is going to go down. But if we literally said, gun to your head, you can work 4 hours per week, you best believe those 4 hours would be the most focused, best work you've produced so far. No bullshit, no procrastination. You'd be like mentally ready for it. Before the 4 hours begins, you'd be almost like preparing like an athlete. You'd be warming up, getting ready, planning it out, what you're going to do and everything. You'll have like your drinks all ready, whatever you need, caffeine and stuff. You'd have your room perfectly set up. Do you see how we can just make your work so much more effective? That's the skill. I'm telling you, it is not working longer hours. It's actually working more like a lion. So what can you practically do to implement this? You have to set a restriction on your work. Otherwise, for a lot of us kind of like anxious, insecure, high achiever guys, work will just fill up our timetable. And it did for me. So for the last year or so, since I got way more into business and to working, I took a lot of pride in what's called pseudo productivity, which is basically like fake productivity for a show to someone. You're trying to show people that you're productive. I would post to the boys in here and I would talk about it online, like, yeah, I wake up at 3 a.m. and I work like 10 hours a day and I'm so disciplined or whatever. To be honest, that was kind of easy for me. What was harder was sitting still and not allowing myself to work excessively. And if I did that, I genuinely believe I wouldn't have had my little fall off that I had this year, and I'd be on 200 something K still. Because when you allow yourself to work too much, you start making stupid mistakes that you're not even prepared for, that you don't even think will happen, but it will happen, and you'll look back and be like, oh shit, Hamza was right. So this is what you can practically do. You want to limit your work tasks, not the time. There's been times when I've limited the work time, like how much hours I can work, for example. And I found something that's even better than that. And this is going to make you one of the most productive people you'd ever meet. What you need to do is figure out what tasks, what actions actually matter. What is actually the constraints of your business or your career? Because you don't want to work just for work's sake. So let me put this into perspective. It was Sunday like last week, and I had planned like a pretty big work day, right? Just out of habit. I wrote down on my calendar I was going to fast all day. I was just going to drink black coffee and smash out a ton of work. I didn't have it was a rest day. I didn't have a kickboxing session that day as well. So I wake up and I'm about to just go through the motions, do the work for work's sake, and just have this pseudo productivity. I'm just going to record a fuck ton of videos. But I sat around with this mindset and I was like, but I don't really need to record videos, do I? And I stopped. I really wanted to get recording because I knew that would make me feel productive and I'd be able to tell people and just feel safe in myself of like, yeah, I've recorded like 7 videos today. Like I'm a productive person. But I stopped and I was like, I don't have to. Like, the videos are already scheduled. That's not the constraint. It's literally going to change nothing if I record today. It's going to change nothing. It's just work for work's sake. And I sat around for a while and I was like, what task needs to actually be done? There's like nothing. Should I just take a day off? There's like nothing. Like, I was thinking about videos. It's like all the channels I've got, they've got like video scheduled and everything. I was like, it's not needed. Like our sort of views and like it's hard to explain, but like the traffic side of things, like the marketing side of things is actually pretty good. It's not the constraint. So I was like sat around and I was like, I really wanted to grind away at work, but it's not going to change anything. What's the constraint? Well, yeah, we've just changed the pricing of this program, and we need to just kind of set up the sales page because right now it's not converting well. Basically, we've got traffic, we've got people who land on the sales page, but not many people are buying it. Right now, the conversion rate's really low. And usually that's something that like I wouldn't do. I wouldn't really look at. I'll go hire someone. I'll speak to my brother, get him to like make something. But I really stared at it. I was like, if there was any work in our entire business that would be worth doing, it would be this. So I went through the sales page, edited a bunch of details and everything, and I got it to the point that it was about 2.5 times more effective. It was very low beforehand, so that sort of multiplier, even though the 2.5x multiplier is massive, overall it didn't change to like, crazy or anything. But it was a fucking to 2.5 times your conversion rate. Like, it was super low, so it's not like good or anything, but you get my point. But basically I worked on what was the conversion, spent a few hours in the morning doing it, and it had a direct impact on how much money the business made from that moment. I stepped away after that because I literally could not think of any other task to do at that point. And I was like, that's so interesting. I literally worked for like 1 or 2 hours today. And that was genuinely more effective than if I just worked for about 8 hours like I was planning to do. Do you see the difference there? The day that I had planned was me planning to be a mule, just mindless, quite frankly, dumb and unintelligent work. Just showing up to the laptop, waking up, opening up the laptop and just working. This is how most people are so easy to defeat. And I'm talking about you, by the way. There's a reason why there's other guys in your niche right now, guys just like you, who are fucking deep throating you right now because you work like a retard. You wake up with no serious plan and you just open up your laptop and you just get to work. That's it. It's the equivalent of just being a mule and just taking one step in front of the other. That's it. That day I was a lion. I sat down and I prepared what I was going to do. I did it. And then afterwards, it was basically just like, there's nothing else I could think of doing. So I just kind of like rested and read books and whatever. This is so anticlimactic. And I totally understand if you're not like advanced enough to kind of grasp this concept and you just want to stay as a mule and think, nope, Hamza's wrong. Got to work 10 hours. All the influencers online work 10 hours. So I'm going to listen to them. You can by all means go ahead and do that if you're not at this level just yet. But if you do want to get to like the next level of your development, I'm telling you, this is the way. I'm telling you 100%, this is the way. You want to work more like a lion. So you want to start scrutinizing the tasks that you're doing because most of the tasks that you're doing are actually pointless today. What you need to do is think about what your ultimate goal is. So let's say your ultimate goal is to get your income to like $3,000 or $4,000 sometime next year. So that way you can travel, you can move to Bali and come live like close to me, come train kickboxing here, join a Adonis school, and you can like live with some of the guys here, drive a motorbike. You've got like ideal male lifestyle, right? You need to make like $3,000 a month for that. That's your goal. Then we need to work backwards from the goal and say, okay, if making $3,000 in April is our goal, or let's say like May is our goal, right? That's a bit realistic. What do we need to do in January? Then you'll be thinking, okay, so like what's stopping me from getting to 3K in May? What's going to stop me? Well, there's only really two things, right? I need to have a product that people want to buy, and then I need to just have people who would want to buy that product. Okay, well, what's the one that I can focus on right now? Well, I've actually got 300 followers. Like I've built up, like, I've made like 50 YouTube videos, whatever, and I've started getting some followers, which is nice. And I'm kind of consistent in recording videos. It's actually kind of easy for me now. So it's kind of like automated mode. But I haven't released a product. I don't even know how to. Don't know what I would sell, whatever. So maybe that's the constraint, right? Because right now, people couldn't even buy anything from me. For most guys watching this, even though they like to believe that they're like high achievers, no one can give you money right now. Like, how absurd is that? Most entrepreneurs are such wannabes that there's literally no way for me to give you money right now. You don't even have a product. There's no way for me to give you money. There's no way. There's no link in the description. There's nothing. So you're like, oh shit, well, that's the constraint, right? Because the constraint isn't the people, because I've got a small amount of people. The constraint is the fact that there's literally no product, no way for people to give me a single dollar. So you're like, okay, fuck yeah, I'll go spend the next week or so making the product. Maybe you join Adonis School, because that's the kind of things that we help like small YouTubers with and everything. And you get an idea, right? So I inside there, I'll tell you like, oh yeah, you should sell this kind of thing. You should sell this educational program. You should sell this coaching, whatever. And you're like, okay, sweet, Hamza told me what to do. I'm going to make this like fitness program like he suggested. It's going to be $100. I've set it up. I've made it pretty nice. Took me 2 weeks to make it. I've still been posting some YouTube videos, and the sales page is up. Oh, but it's interesting because the sales page isn't actually getting much views, because even though I've got 300 subscribers, my videos only get like 50 views, and almost no one is then clicking on the link below. So then you're like, okay, so the next constraint is that I need to get more views on the video, and I need to get more of those people to click on the link. So then you're thinking, okay, well, how do I get more views on the video? I've got to make a more attractive video with a better title, which, is popping off, with maybe a better thumbnail and a better first 5 to 10 seconds so that the algorithm boosts it. And I've got to think of a better way and better timing of me mentioning the link in the description. Do you see how we're working constraint by constraint? Do you see what I mean, right? We're working constraint by constraint by constraint. We're figuring out what needs to happen today, not just what work we want to do, not just what work kind of like, we're pulled towards, but what actually is holding us back from getting to our goal. Let me explain to you in another way, right? So people ask me, why did Adonis School churn out so much? Earlier this year, we had 2,000 people in there. So that's about 250K a month. Right now, we've got 662. So it's went down by like 70%, right? So that's pretty fucking bad. Why did that happen? Because when we were rising up, there was a constraint, a problem that I knew about that I just didn't put the effort to solve. And the problem is churn. Churn is like basically a percentage of people will always leave a monthly subscription product because of the nature of like ongoing payments. And our churn was fairly high. It was like 35%. So when you get to 2,000 people with 35% churn, that means that 600 people are going to leave that month. So if you get 600 sales in a month, you've broke even and you've stayed at 2,000 people. If you get 500 sales in a month, which is still pretty fucking awesome, you're back down to 1.9K. Do you see, like, churn is like malicious, right? It just sapped through our size here. I knew this was the problem. I knew it was the constraint, but I allowed myself to work like a mule. And so I would wake up super early and I'd work on the things that just felt more comfortable for me. Like I would make courses for inside the program. I would do more calls, like I was doing daily calls inside. I would make a fuck ton of content on different platforms and everything. I was doing everything other than the one thing I should have been focused on, which was reducing churn. That's often the case for the mule. When you work like a mule, there's often one thing you really need to work on. Like for me, it was churn. But you'll often not do, because if you're allowing yourself to work like 10 hours a day, often you'll go and do some of the work that feels more comfortable for you, that feels that, you're more naturally pulled towards, that you can do without kind of like draining yourself. And then when you do a bit of that work, you're kind of tired, and then you just push away the thing that you're supposed to do, that you really need to do, because you just can't be bothered like kind of thinking about it right now. But if you work like a lion, and a big part of the lion is being sat around just thinking about what needs to happen, then working very efficiently on it, that's when you make results. So imagine this. I hit 2,000 members inside of Adonis School knowing I had high churn, and it was going down every single month. We hit 2,000. We never hit 2,100 members in this program. How many people symbolizes like how many sales we've got and how many people have stayed, right? We never hit 2,100. We celebrated 2,000. We never hit 2,100. The next month, it was down to like 1,850, because even though there's a lot of churn, we also got a lot of sales, but we didn't equal it out. And it's just getting sapped through over and over and over again, all the way down, 1,400, 1,100, 800, all the way down, right? Through that entire time, I knew that churn was the problem, but because I was working like a mule, I wasn't sitting around to like calculate and to really determine which thing I need to focus on. Because when you're allowed to work so much, you just want to work on the things that feel a little bit more natural. Like it's just what happens, unfortunately, right? So yeah, and so I saw my business go down by about 70% in the last 6 months, and I basically did nothing to solve it. And here's the kicker. Once I started to work like a lion again, as I did originally in my business, and as I did maybe a few weeks ago, I saw that churn was a problem. It was just under 40%. And I focused on it for a couple of days, and it instantly went down. It went down from 38% to 33 when I made a couple of decisions. Then it went down and down and down. And in the space of just a couple of weeks, it went down very significantly. And the churn is right now 21.96%. That's almost halved, right? So it was started just under 40%, and it's basically 22 right now. So imagine I lost 70% of my business this year because I just didn't work like a lion for about 2 weeks. That's all it took to fix it. It was actually so fast to reduce it once I basically said to myself, like, nothing else matters. Stop fucking quickly recording a YouTube video. Stop scrolling the posts here. Stop replying to YouTube comments. Just focus on this. When I just did that for a few days, I solved it. Do you see, like I know that in theory you're thinking like, oh, but I'll just do both. I'll work like that, but then with the long hours. But I'm telling you, in practicality, how it actually works is like the lion. You've got to work like a bit of a retard. You've got to like basically not allow yourself to do anything, especially the thing that you really want to do. Like just go, whatever is your comfort zone, like recording a YouTube video or something. Because whatever is more comfortable and natural for you is often not the constraint for you in the next level of your success journey. Like for me, recording videos is fine. So that's often never been the constraint for me. It's like the thing that you don't know how to do right now. And if there's something you don't know how to do, you have to put your 100% focus in basically planning it, right? That's like the equivalent of the lion who's like looking through the brushes, trying to pick out his target. And he'll maybe sit there for like half an hour. He'll just sit there and watch them for half an hour, just thinking of which target he wants to go for, just observing the entire crowd, looking for one that's limping. Imagine observing there's like 100 buffalo, 100 in front of you. A mule would just fucking run in and just think, oh, well, I'll probably get something, right? And then all of them run away and you're like, oh, I can't believe I didn't get a single one. The lion just stays there sat and just looks at all of them, like each one individually, for like half a minute. Notices the way that it's eating, the way that it's moving. Nope, looks healthy. No, looks healthy. That one's got a bit of a limp, but he's one of the big ones. That one there, that one's got quite a significant limp. It looks a little bit older. It's often, a little bit further away from the rest of the pack. That's what you need. That was the equivalent of me in that few days. I just sat around writing in my notepad, writing in the note page on my phone, on the laptop, thinking like, what is it? Why is business went down? Yeah, it's churn, but how the fuck do I decrease churn? Then I started to watch like this video on it. I read this book on it. I just started to go onto ChatGPT, asking it questions about churn. I messaged a bunch of people, asked them questions about churn. I paid people like to analyze data about churn for the few days. That was me in preparation, right? I didn't even take real action. Like that is action, but like I didn't even do any task. I just was like literally observing through the brushes like a lion till eventually I knew what the problem was. I knew what the data was saying, and I knew what action needed to be taken. And then literally I took that action within like an hour, and the churn went down by like considerably, almost instantly. And then it's went almost like half of what it was before. Like to have 22% churn now is like, it's pretty respectable. That's like a pretty normal churn for this like product that I've got now. That's what you need. You need to work like a modern day cognitive knowledge worker, not a mule. You don't need to work longer. You need to just figure out what task is actually required of you, what the constraint is. So if I give you another example, let's say you are, let me give you one more example. Let's say you're in school right now and you actually want to get good grades because you genuinely will get something out of it. Most people won't, but let's say the career you want to go to absolutely and utterly requires a degree, like, I don't know, like law or something. You want to become a lawyer or something. And you need to get high grades, right? Most people don't need high grades. Most people don't need to take school seriously at all because it's a fucking stupid system. But some people need to take it very seriously because they know what career they want to go to, which actually requires a degree. So for those people, you could do what you're comfortable with, which is like show up to school and read through some of the books that they gave you and stuff. But that's often not going to be the constraint. You should ask yourself, you should sit there and say, okay, what's the hardest part of the work? What am I getting the lowest grades in, which is bringing my average down? For example, when I was in university, I studied psychology. So I have like a bachelor's degree in psychology. And there was a subject, we had like four modules or whatever inside psychology, and one of them was called research methods. And that for me was the most difficult because it was kind of like maths, but not exactly. It was like you had to know all these like weird terms and the way that you would conduct like a psychological experiment and whatever. And I just wasn't really paying attention in that class. I used to sit next to a girl that I wanted to fuck as well, so I was always distracted in the classes and whatever. Now, if I was giving advice to younger me and he was like, oh, Hamza, like I really need to get a high grade in psychology, what should I do? I'd say, okay, well, what's your plan? And he'll say, oh, well, like I'm just going to study the, what was it now? Imagine there was another module, social psychology, like we'll just call it that, right? That was the one I enjoyed. His plan, younger me's plan, was to just keep studying that because I enjoyed it and I was already pretty good at it. My grades in that one was actually pretty good. But coming from a better intellectual place, I tell him, wait, like you're going to get diminishing results if you focus on that. That's not the constraints. You've actually already studied for that. You've already read about it in your free time. You're actually pretty good at it already. Like I was getting the equivalent of like 75, 80 or whatever in this one module, but I kept on spending more time on it because it was just more natural for me. And you get more positive reinforcements. But then you have the one that's really low down that overall, it's the average of the four subjects that gives you your real grade at the end of the year, like whatever percentage you get. And those other ones, they're bringing it down, so you should focus more on those ones that are holding you back right now. That's what I would have suggested to someone who's in school right now. And it's the same with bodybuilding, for example. Let's say you've been going to the gym for quite a long time, like I have, right? And my upper body looks fucking phenomenal. Like I have a thick size, I've got pecs, I can like bounce my fucking pecs like this. I've got like thick biceps. If you watch my vlog channel, the kickboxing vlogs, whenever I'm wearing a shirtless, a sleeveless vest, you can just see my biceps look fucking nice, shoulders look nice, everything, right? Upper body's all good. Lower body, not so much. Calves are pretty small. Quads and hamstrings, like not so big, whatever. Pretty like kind of too small for my upper body. Not crazy, but a little bit, especially the calves, right? Does it make sense for me to go and do a really hard upper body workout? If I'm in mule mode, I'll just go and do the same workout routine as always. Upper, lower, push-pull legs, whatever. Just AFK, NPC mode, right? This is what most people are like. But if I sit around like a lion and I say, okay, you're only allowed to have one shot at this, what's going to be the biggest impact? It's like me observing my muscles, me really thinking about things. And I'd be like, well, you need to train legs more, right? You need to actually change your workout routine. Why are you doing push-pull legs, which is prioritizing upper body? Why don't you do legs 4 or 5 times a week? Why don't you do 3 or 5 sets of calves every single day? Why don't you make that your focus? Because your physique is constrained by that one thing. If my biceps go from 16 or whatever they are right now to like 16.5 inches, it's not gonna change the look of my physique. My biceps are already big. The constraint is where the focus will go to. If you've got like really skinny legs but a big upper body, getting a bigger upper body is not going to help you, right? That's the equivalent of me already having like a few weeks worth of videos stacked up, but then recording more videos just because it's like I'm just working for work's sake compared to actually working on churn, which is the real thing. And I'm telling you, when you work like a lion, you start making the right choice on what to work on. But when you work like a mule, when you go to the gym like a dumb bodybuilder who just does the same split, the same routine over and over, you start getting like this weird imbalance in your results, and you have this blatant fucking hole in your system, in your business, that's sapping your results that you're not even focused on because you just keep doing with what you're comfortable on. You've got to focus more on the task that's actually required from you, and the way that you do that is actually by not working longer. Do you like it? Like, you need to understand this. Working longer will stop you from working like this. So this is the way you've got to start working from now on. It's not about working longer. Work like the lion. Figure out what is actually required from you, and then actually go in and go all in on that task. That's it. And I'll just quickly answer the second part of his question here by Victor. And he said, without getting distracted. That should be like a whole video in and of itself, but just because it's in his comments, I'll just quickly explain. How do you work without getting distracted? You've got to do some of the easy things first. Make it easy on yourself. Turn your phone off, close the blinds, those kinds of things. And, you know, with the phone, I actually thought this the other day. Most people work with their phone right next to their computer, and their phone is still got all the notifications and all those kinds of things, right? Imagine that. Just visualize this for a second, right? And visualize some guy like you who's got his phone with all the notifications, sound, loud mode and everything right next to his computer. He's trying to work and then his phone goes off and he checks his phone, whatever, right? That is the equivalent of getting married. You and your wife are sleeping in bed, and you have a prostitute naked on the other side. It's the equivalent of you and your wife like having coffee in the morning, and there is literally a girl bent over opening up her pussy for you. Like, you've literally got the thing to cheat with right there. And as much as a lot of guys are like, no, I'm faithful, at some point, you might crack just because it's so frictionless, right? Even the best men might crack in that circumstance after 10 times, 100 times, like 1,000 days of being in that kind of situation. Even the best men, before they know it, one day they might end up penetrating the other girl and cheating on their wives just because of the fact that she was just kind of there, and they put themselves in a really like fucking weird situation with enough volume of instances to result in that. Like, putting your phone next to your laptop is like bringing a prostitute home and having her bend over in front of you when you're trying to stay faithful to your girl. Do you see? It's the same thing, right? I know it's a bit of an absurd analogy, but you get my point. It's the same thing. Why would you have the thing that's basically cheating next to you? Why would you have the thing that's distracting you right next to you, right? So if you haven't already, for the love of God, go on your phone and turn off the notifications. So you go to the notification section and turn it off for all apps. I literally don't get any notifications. So my phone, the way that it works is if someone texts me on WhatsApp, for example, I don't see it anywhere. It doesn't pop up on my screen. It doesn't even show up in the notifications little tab thing. The only time I see my WhatsApp messages is when I click on WhatsApp and I get like, because I wanted to see them. I refuse to be some modern day little fucking bitch who gets interrupted from what I was thinking about because of this sort of inflow. I forgot there's a phrase like the push notifications. The same with Instagram messages, for example. I often don't keep Instagram on my phone just because I know that like it makes it easier to scroll, the same way that I don't keep a whore in my bed because I know that it'd be easier to just fuck, right? I'm not a fucking idiot. So I don't keep Instagram on my phone. But if I did, even still, it's still the same setting. The only time I see Instagram messages is when I go on Instagram and actually, swipe and see them there. None come through to my phone in a push notification. It doesn't show up on screen. It doesn't come into the task, the notification slide down thing or anything like that. Phone calls, text messages, all the same. The only time I see phone calls is literally if I click on the phone app. Even if someone's called me and it's, my phone's always on do not disturb, silent and everything, nothing happens. It doesn't even show up on my phone up until I click on the phone app. And you're thinking, oh, that's crazy. Yeah, but this is why I'm a millionaire and you're not. So do you want to fucking listen to me or not, dickhead? Okay, do you want to just fucking listen or not? Is this not one of your goals, right? Oh, it's crazy. I wouldn't want to live. Oh, this, but what about this, Hamza? What about... I'm arguing for you. You're arguing against me. Like, I'm on your side. You're not even on... You're on the side of these fucking technology apps. Like, if you're disagreeing with me right now, think about this. I'm on your side and you're arguing for your phone. You're arguing for these apps. You're arguing for Mark Zuckerberg. He's clapping your cheeks right now. And you're like, oh, but Mark wouldn't do that to me. No, I've got to have the push notifications. I've got to stay up to date. What about an emergency? Most likely, the emergency is not going to come to you. You've just got to be realistic with this, right? If you live at home right now and your dad or your big brother is like a real man, most likely the emergency is not going to come to you. Now, I don't live at home. I live in Bali, in a completely different fucking country from my family. So they're not going to call me in an emergency. There's literally no emergency that could happen that would even involve me. Of course, shit could happen and like you'd want to know, but it still wouldn't be time sensitive because I can't do anything about it. And there's no one here that would like have me as their emergency person. It's kind of sad, but it's just the case, right? In general, that's going to be the case. Now, if you live at home with your single mother, okay, fair enough. I actually totally understand that. I respect that. Keep your phone thing on for her. Basically, turn it off for everyone. Make her one of the emergency contacts, so when she calls you, it goes through right away. Totally understand that. That's absolutely fine as well. But then you get the best of both, right? So if you're making the excuse of emergencies, you can go on your phone and set an emergency contact who, when they ring you or text you, it always shows it. Do not disturb, silent doesn't affect it. So you can go ahead, absolutely go and do that if you want to. But for everyone else, and for also even the guys who need the emergency thing, it's like, just do it anyway. Like, you don't need your friend to be able to message you. You don't need to see when you get someone who follows you on Instagram. Turn all of that off, all these things. Your phone is one of the biggest pieces of distraction. Then it's the same thing on your computer, right? What degen shit are you doing on your computer? You go on YouTube. I've got 7 blockers on my laptop just to add a little bit of friction so that when I go onto my school, for example, nothing is there. When I go onto YouTube, nothing is there, because after I record this video and I want to upload the video, I don't want to click on YouTube and see thumbnails and see like, here's a video about Hamza. This just in, I'm a fucking loser and I make videos about other YouTubers. So Hamza said this and Hamza's, you know what I mean? I don't want to see a fucking thumbnail from some fucking retard talking about me when I'm just going on to upload a video. I don't even want to see comments, right? Like if I want to see comments, I'll physically go and, I'll physically like click on the sort of comments box and go read them. I don't want them to just pop up. I don't want to see messages or anything unless if I've actually clicked and went over to that place. This is the biggest lever you can pull to not get distracted from your work. There's other small things like the position of your desk. Make sure you're facing a wall and not outside if you're the kind of person who will randomly just stop and look over. And we can even talk about micro things like, for example, wearing a shirt. So I've even like tracked autistic shit. Like a lot of times I'll work shirtless because, you know, it's a pretty hot country here and everything. But I've noticed that that's actually considerably more distracting than wearing a shirt, because sometimes when I'm not wearing a shirt, I'll be working a little bit, get a bit bored, it's a little bit difficult, and I end up like looking down at like the hair on my chest, or I'll look at like, you know, my arm here, this thing, I'll flex my bicep or some shit, I'll look down and, you know, I'll get distracted by something, right? And there was a time I remember when I had like a little spot like on my upper chest or something, and I just spent ages like, you know, looking down, like popping it and stuff. And then it's like my eyes were all like blurry and shit, and I just got pissed off because I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you looking at that when you were in the middle of a work task, right? So wearing clothes, like you can see that there's so many random little things you can do to just keep your focus on your work. So think of the few that you need to make. If your phone isn't bulletproof right now with notifications and all that stuff, go ahead and do that right now. Silent mode, do not disturb, even airplane mode. Turn it fucking off. Problem solved. Like, if it's going to help you to become financially free, why the fuck are you hesitating? Turn it off for 2 hours a day. It's not crazy. It's like, why not be the weird guy who has his phone off as the sort of basic state, right? Why not be that weird guy whose phone is always off, but you turn it on with a specific reason, use it for what you needed, then turn it off again? Like, that's strange as fuck. People's phones is just on 24/7, right? That's strange to be the guy whose phone is always off unless you're using it for something, then you turn it off again. That's strange, but you've got to be a strange guy if you want to be a high performer, so maybe you start integrating shit like that, right? So I hope this video has really helped you, particularly the just working longer part. I just wanted to save you from the mistakes that I've made. You don't need to be working like an immigrant 10, 12 hours a day. You don't need to be... you can have the immigrant mindset, you know, always wanting to strive for more, work hard, provide for your family by all means. But you don't need to be working like a mule for the top results in your business. The only exception, I'll quickly just say before we get off, is if you are actually genuinely in some work or a field where working like a mule is still the case. So if you work in a factory, for example, if you work in like the Amazon warehouse, it doesn't matter, like there's no lion work there. You may as well take as many shifts as possible, do overtime, whatever, if you're just trying to make as much money as possible. It's a very like brain dead kind of place. So you just want to work as much as possible. Like I've worked in warehouses before in back in the UK, I worked for Royal Mail, like the posting place, like the government sort of posting thing. And for that, you just want to work as many hours as possible, mule mode, right? You want to be a mule. But if you are working online, if you're doing some kind of modern day intellectual thing, if you're in school, if you've got some high level career, if you want to be an influencer, online business, all of it is lion work. And I really hope you take this seriously. You've got to have the discipline to be a lion. I'm telling you, the easier thing is to be the mule. It is discipline to restrict the work, to sit around for an hour refusing to do work till you've really nailed it down of what task actually needs to get done. Not the one that you just plan on doing so that you can feel productive for your fragile little ego, but the one that actually needs to get done. And if you need more lessons like this, if you find that something like this is life-changing, I am telling you, that link in the description to this program, it will change your life forever. We will turn you into a top performer, help you set up like your sort of YouTube channel, online business, give you friends and brothers to actually connect with on this journey so you don't feel alone, give you hope and a dream for the future that when you do start making money online as a top performer, you can come and travel with our community. Like we're all going to be traveling to countries together. A bunch of the guys are going to come and stay in Bali for a while, and like they're all booking the place together and everything. So make sure you come and join because I really think you fit in here. Goodbye.